What do I think a man is? Well, in Genesis 1:27, we read that God created man in his own image. But what does that mean, to be created in the image of God? To be the physical representation of our Lord? What is it that defines masculinity? Is it something that culture tells us, or is it something else? Is it Maximus in the film The Gladiator, or Benjamin Martin in The Patriot? Or are these movies simply over-dramatizations of what a man really is? You see, I believe that a man is something far more complex than that, and so much more divine.
So often, people are willing to accept a one-dimensional view of a man, which defines a man by what he does. But what is it that people recognize as masculine? For instance, people see the young men behind me playing basketball, and they recognize that as a masculine trait. But a man has so much to do with his heart and his character.
Man is defined by the way he reacts to the life around him. Every moment he is defining his character and his ideals. He's defining himself into something beautiful or something warped and twisted. Take this piece of wood for example. It could have been created into a beautiful house or beautiful chair, but because it has become burned and charred, it has become useless to a purpose. So are you going to become a board that is created into a house or a chair? Or are you going to become useless and only worthy of being thrown into the fire and burned?
I believe we need to get into then how a man should live his life, to cultivate a mature and moral character. One of the things I believe a man should do is to be able to balance his life, to live a life in which he can manage all of his duties such as homework or paying the bills. A man definitely should live his life with a focus on relationships. In Proverbs 27:17, we read, "As iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance of his friend." It is the people who we have in our lives that affect us and cause us to change to be better people. Without someone to speak into your life, you can only see yourself through your tinted or possibly warped view of reality. And above that, it is the impact on people's lives that has the greatest worth. A man can spend his whole life building an empire of silver and gold and find himself alone at the end. Or a man can spend his life on people and be immortalized in their hearts forever.
A man should also make time in his life for contemplation and solitude. The depths of the human soul can never be discovered in the busyness of the moment. Instead, they need to be sought after like a precious jewel. How can you fully know others if you don't fully know yourself? The busyness of life will always be there to rush back to. But for a moment, you should stop and think about how much do you really know yourself? How much do you really seek to know yourself out in solitude? Above all else, a man needs to be seeking God in his own life. This means different things for different people. Some people seek God in reading their Bible every day, while still others may seek God in the crest of the ocean waves or in the whisper of the woods. The key, though, is that a man is actually seeking God's heart, and that he is allowing God to speak into his heart.
So I guess you want a conclusion to what I view a man is. Well, that's a complicated answer, because a man is something so complex. He's something that comes from the very core of his being. He's something that is more felt than portrayed. A man is someone who is constantly redefining himself. He's redefining himself to improve upon his soul and his character. A man is someone who is redefining himself by the people in his life, by the books he reads, by his understanding of life, and by his constant communion with God. A man is not a perfect person, but he is someone who is constantly learning from and improving upon his mistakes. A man is someone who is humble and tender, and yet at the same time, a man is someone who is incredibly strong and incredibly passionate.
So I guess the real question is, are you willing to live your life under a new definition of masculinity? To be a man who is humble is hard. To be a man who is tender is absolutely terrifying. It is so easy to only portray a mask of strength, and to live a life of passion is a dangerous thing. Yet you can live your life as a charade that you play, or you can live your life as a new discovery of what masculinity is. How long is it going to take you to step out on faith and jump? Jump into a life of self-realization and faith? The landing may be hard. You may realize that your entire life has been lived as a lie. But a life lived walking beside people is so much better than living a life standing above them.